Okay, we are live. Sorry for anyone that's been waiting. Just had some technical difficulties with our TikTok stream and it kind of held everything else back. Fun times. But we'll jump right in here. So welcome back to the Think Tank podcast. I'm Travis, and if you're new here, here's what we're about in one line. We're upgrading how America chooses its leaders so you can finally vote for you. Right now, this is the system is rigged. Big money and party gatekeepers decide who's electable before you ever see a ballot. So we're building something different, citizen owned, no corporate control, where every candidate gets a fair shot and you could finally find leaders who represent you. And that's what we're here for. Better choices, your choices. So follow us so you don't miss what's coming. And if you want in on what we're building, join us at hub.futureis.org. The link is in the bio. All right, let's plug in.
Awesome. Travis, immigration is just being talked about everywhere, and people on both sides of the aisle have very strong feelings and opinions on it, and rightfully so. But what really bothers me, Travis, is that politicians, again, on both sides of the aisle, uh, have been talking about immigration and solutions for decades. They get reelected on these campaign promises. They fundraise off of these campaign promises. But yet here we are. And I would say we're further from a solution than ever before. So, Travis, if both parties, you know, verbally say that they want to fix this issue, why hasn't anything been fixed?
Yeah, so that's kind of the rig pattern that we're always stuck in. Both parties are funded and maintain the same enforcement when they're in power. Even but both sides do a lot of the similar stuff, contrary to what most people believe right now. And but then they campaign a certain way, and then when they're actually in office, their actions are a little different than the way they campaign. Um, and Whether it's like going to a certain extreme more than what they promise or less than what they promise, it's always out of line with what the voters expect of them. And really the issue where we come in is like the issue isn't about a lack of consensus, or like not of having not enough votes. It's the design itself that there is a consensus. There's a large number, like as divisive as issues like immigration is. there's there is a part where there is a lot of support, and there could be a larger consensus on the issue, but it's just the way we have like black or white extremes and just keeping the division. The consensus isn't even factored in. They're not looking at what most America wants. They're looking at the narrative that keeps them in power, essentially. And so like it's not a Republican problem or Democrat problem, it's a power problem. And the idea that neither side's really there to fix problems, they're there to have something to campaign on and scare you into voting for them.
And that's so crazy. So if both sides are really, benefiting from the outrage and these extreme emotions that we're feeling, uh, what should people actually look for rather than just, looking at party lines? What's a bigger idea that people can really grab onto?
Yeah, so the key there is like, not assuming your own party leadership is supporting what you support and are actually aligned with your values. We say this often that like, we all know that politicians lie. Like that's, built in. We've known that pretty much all our lives. And then like, but when push comes to shove in practice, we end up, if our party is in office, we forget that like pretty much all politicians lie, and then we like, I guess, convince ourselves that our party is not lying and it's just the other side that's lying, when it's really, both sides are stuck in the system of lack of accountability and not fulfilling their genuine promises. So what we say here is it's really about tracking your representatives specifically. Don't assume, oh, I'm a Democrat, they're a Democrat, I'm good, or I'm a Republican, they're a Republican, I'm good. No, don't assume that at all. Really look at your representative. Are they, what is their voting record? Are they taking the right stance that you are expecting them to do, that they promised that they would be doing? Um, and really holding their feet to the fire. And again, just not like we make too much of a broad assumption that if they're on my side, I don't have to do any digging. I could just assume that all Democrats are the same, all Republicans are the same. And but it's so not true. We need better candidates across the aisle.
Absolutely. And quick reset if you're just tuning in, we're looking at immigration through the lens that goes beyond simply left or right. And we're asking a different question. Who is using this issue to serve the people, or are they using it to serve power? So let's keep going into this conversation. So what's frustrating is the way this conversation is usually had in the public domain. It really feels like there's only these two options, and these two options are so extreme on both sides. Uh, and it feels like there's no collaboration. We talked about consensus, and there's no middle ground. But that, these extreme positions uh, can't be the only way forward, because a lot of people don't fall into those extreme positions. So why does the conversation, Travis, always get pushed to these maximum uh, polar opposites?
uh yeah, so it just they're living in this pattern that, like, really it's in a lot of ways not even their fault. The system itself kind of traps us in this pattern. You know and it boils down that the extreme framing is what's profitable for media. The extreme positions generate clicks, shares, engagement, ad revenue. They know that the drama, the infighting, the more we fight with each other, it's clickbaity, and having the fear and the adrenaline, we're gonna spend more time on their content, and more often look at stuff, like the news. Like, if there's nothing major happening in current events, you're less likely to check out the news. So they want you to think that everything is dire, everything is extreme, everything's falling apart, no matter how they want to frame whose fault it is, or this or that. Um, so that's the media. And then for the politicians, crisis language generates donations and voter turnout. Right now, both sides don't really have a vision of, like, this is a way to get us better, or truly better economy. This is the way to have better representation. So, they don't have substance for you to vote for. So they just focus on the against and the crises, and, like, it's like, well, the other guy's so much worse, and look what they're doing. They're lighting the building on fire. So even though I have no plan to make a better building, they're lighting it on fire, and I'm not. So vote for me. Um, both the media and the politicians really benefit from pushing you to the edges, and the middle disappears from the conversation, and the consensus disappears from the conversation. There's a lot of consensus, but it's not something like moderation doesn't sell. Like, being in agreement with one another is not a, like, breaking story. I mean, literally, we've seen that with Think, that, like, our content is less divisive and less polarizing, and the algorithm actually treats us negatively because of that, because we're not inciting angriness and infighting and people getting mad at each other. It doesn't grow us as quickly, because they want that's what the platforms, that's what the system wants from content. um so most Americans actually want functional reform. They want secure borders and a better path to legal immigration. There's a lot of complexity of what that totally looks like and where the gray areas are, but it's not a radical position. It's the majority position, but you'd never know it from the coverage that happens, because they're not going to talk about what most America wants. They're going to inflate and stay in the sensationalism. And so in a nutshell, it's a trap. Each side caricatures the other's most extreme positions, and then they're like, hey, at least we're not that, so support us. And that is the pattern that we need to break.
Yeah. Paul Willis writes in our TikTok chat, and they say an overwhelming majority think people should not be allowed to sneak into this country. Um, and I think that really taps into people are really looking for a solution to immigration, a better pathway forward to do that. And I think, Paul, you hit on something that people want something to be done. And before I pass to Travis, politicians almost stay above the ability to have a solution and really enjoy, in my opinion, staying in those talking points that we're addressing, right? The fundraising, the campaigning promises. Yeah, I'll pass it to Travis.
Yeah, 100%. Like, cause like the caricatures that they try to play is either you're doing like concentration camps or you're doing completely open borders or just everyone flooding in, no structure, no limitation. And it's like, like they're saying, like most people are in a more middle. Most people don't want completely open borders and flooding in. They want path to citizenship, but legalized, taxed, all those kinds of things. So there is a ground that most people would agree with, and so that's where we really need to acknowledge that's part of the broken system, the party gatekeepers on both sides. When you look at the candidates that don't take big money and special interests, and they're more of the down-serving candidates like we talk about, coincidentally their immigration policies are more like more of what the consensus would want. So it's really just the upserving candidates, the ones that don't have much to not real substance to their policies, and they're just playing the game of politics instead of actually wanting to solve problems. Those are the ones that are on those extremes and pushing these bigger narratives in general.
Yeah, if I could tack onto that, Travis, there's also in the current system, there isn't really a reward for providing the people with what they want, right? Because it's about that electability and campaigning and that turning of the machine. So what we're saying is, yeah, there's a consensus, but there's not even a reward for the people we elect into power to listen, to give their ear to the general population, if it doesn't fit into the fundraising and campaign promises.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Um,
yeah, last part of this segment. Yeah. So kind of like in a nutshell, like these politicians, they keep you scared of the other side, so they don't have to deliver results. And then for the media, they want to keep you outraged, and then they never have to actually inform you and give you real substance. They could just keep like floundering with the most extreme narrative that's happening right now. And the big trap for all of us as voters is we end up defending our side as a reflex instead of asking, like, is my representative actually representing me? I've seen this many times when, as we're building this mission of this new way of looking at the politics, that, like, people, they're just conditioned that they have to defend their side. The moment you give a critique to their party, they assume you're supporting the opposite party, and it's like, well, there's more complexity than that. It's not all Democrats are created equal, all Republicans are created equal. There's good, there's bad, there's different intentions, and the key is understanding the true intention of your candidates. Are they genuinely there to make our world a better place, or are they there to just keep gaining power and feed into the special interests?
Awesome. So yeah, what we're seeing here, the pattern, this extreme framing keeps us arguing, keeps us upset. And while we're arguing, like Travis said, no one's feet is held to the fire. No one is accountable. So let's actually start talking about what accountability in the system would look like. You know, whether whatever your take is on immigration, people clearly want to do something. They want a solution. You see it when people protest, when they call their representatives, in social media campaigns and hashtags. So that energy is real and abundant, but it feels like it just gets absorbed by the system and really nothing changes. There's no output. So how do we turn that energy into something real that actually moves the needle towards, either that consensus or just a pathway forward?
Yeah, so yeah, right now it's the system is absorbing that outrage without consequence, and it's the politicians know the anger starts fading. Yes, people are bugging out right now, like with immigration, some other things, but it fizzles out. Yes, like some people keep that in mind when the election hits, but people kind of almost forget what happened months ago. They're kind of, they're the way this outrage cycling happens, they're focusing on the next, big focus. But what we need to do is, like, that outrage needs to turn to consequences. There needs to be consequences for these politicians. So that ties into what we're like at our core at Think. We're trying to build systems of accountability and transparency, and like really showing the politicians you have consequences. Because it doesn't matter if there's 10 million people outside their door protesting if it doesn't actually result in a in voting changes in the election. So, if we can show them this is what we're demanding and this is the consequence of you not fulfilling what we are demanding as the people, that's part of this key. And like, again and again, like, people get trapped in this, like, they don't see it as patterns. I guess it's just like, I'm neurodiverse and my mind works in pattern recognition. So I see almost everything I do is like, I see how it plugs into patterns. But I know most people don't see it that way. But how many times do you hear like, oh, comprehensive immigration reform is coming? Like, whoever the next Democrat that's going to end up running for president, they're going to say something about, oh, we're going to have this amazing immigration plan, and I don't have it in writing, and you're not going to know exactly what it is, but it's wonderful, and we're going to do great things when we're elected, just like last time. And it doesn't come. So like, we need to understand that, they're going to tell us what we want to hear. That doesn't mean they're going to act it out, because there's no consequences to them not fulfilling. Like, they could promise you anything and there's no consequence for breaking those promises, because like, the establishment media no longer calls them out on that. It's just, they just take their party lines, and there's not a real, the system, our system at its core does not have this accountability factor in. And that's basically what we're building with our digital politics hub, and then later digital democracy, is building this system of accountability, make it easier for Americans to see, like, what did my candidate promise, but then are they fighting for these promises? Do they have conflicts of interest that go against what they're promising to us? Like, that's such a key piece to this. So what's missing isn't the passion, it's accountability infrastructure, people tracking the votes, comparing promises to actions, and refusing to let their own representatives off the hook just because they wear the right jersey, just because you're my party. And it's so true that people, they don't hold their own party to the fire, they only hold the opposite party to the fire. And that's we're never going to break these patterns if we don't change that.
So what does that look like, Travis, when someone shifts from almost self-contained outrage in the current system to having a people-powered system of accountability?
Yeah, so first it's about stopping assuming that your party represents your actual position on this issue. Look at their specific votes, their specific bills, specific funding decisions. So right now at this stage, what we with our digital politics hub, we're starting to have like these checklists and resources to find this information. Once we're able to build digital democracy in phase 2, this will all be streamlined into one system, so it'd be completely easy to find. But it's chicken or the egg. We need the people power before we can build that side of it. But then the next thing is, asking every candidate, what is your specific plan? Not just be, are you better than the other side? That's not good enough. This whole lesser two evils is the bar keeps getting lower and lower and lower. If we're just voting for the lesser two evils, the bar can just keep going down and down. And it is. You can look at the numbers and, representative numbers, how well our economy is doing, the lack of representation, everything is on a decline, regardless of which party's in power, because the bar keeps getting lower. So we have to, it has to be more than just, oh well, you're not the other party, so I'm going to vote for you. It's like, no, you need to give me more. You're not entitled to my vote. And so that's 2. Third one is really amplifying the candidates and the voices that really match what you're looking for, right? Like, there's more and more independent journalists out there on social media, especially, that are trying to give a less less performative viewpoint and giving you a more objective information. We want to amplify those people that, and you know, and the same with the grassroots candidates. We want to amplify the voices that genuinely have have substance to their answer. They have a plan, they have a vision on how to make things better. And they're not just pointing to the other side as like, oh, well, they're worse than me, so vote for me. Because you know, people have to remember, like the good guys, the good candidates, the grassroots people, the independent journalists, the one thing they don't have is that the money part of, like, you know, the reason why the bad guy always has so much voice is because they have the money, they have the special interest, they have the big donors, they have a major financial advantage to buy themselves a louder voice. But for the grassroots candidates, they have to earn a louder voice by resonating with you, representing you, proving that they are on your side is how they raise their voice. And, you know, the problem is still the system is completely stacked against them. So they need a lot of support, you know. So again, our digital politics hub, we're building this digital politics aligned section where we're adding more and more journalists to the list, candidates to the list, people that are trustworthy on any side of the aisle, whether Democrat, Republican, or other sides. And then digital democracy will be the official home for all of this once that launches. But we, you know, we need people's help to amplify those voices, amplify our voices. You know, everyone that's not sold, everyone that hasn't sold their soul needs to raise money in a healthier way, which is harder. It is more challenging, which is why we're stuck in this system right now. So we need to overcome that. And, like, you know, a lot of what we're building is a network to amplify all these grassroots voices into one system, so they can be louder. Like, being louder doesn't cost as much money, and they have the chance to gain organic visibility with the people. And so that's what we're building towards with the digital politics hub right now, and then digital democracy later. Once enough people are watching, tracking, and comparing the politicians, they no longer get hide behind their talking points anymore. Now you have factual data. Hey, you're just saying that so you get my vote, but you're clearly not fighting for what I believe in, you know, when you have the power to do so. You know, so that's the stuff that we really need to focus on.
That was a great explanation. Um, so all of this to say, we're not saying stop caring. We're not saying calm down. The energy, the passion, the desire for change is so real. And we really want to tap into that and say there's a better way to get results outside of this broken garbage system that we're in. What we are saying is that the system wants your outrage unfocused. It wants you mad at the other party instead of actually being able to track what your own representative uh, actually voted for. So when we direct that energy toward accountability, that's when things really are able to start changing. So Travis, last question for this live. If someone watching this wants to start making that shift towards accountability today, what is one thing that they can start doing?
Yeah, so like a really good one is go look up your representative's actual voting record on immigration, not their tweets, votes, other social, not their tweets, but their votes. You know, see if they match their promises. Do their actions follow the promise, or are they just, you know, throwing you know, lip service to the wind just so you like them? You know, don't go by their talk. You know, do they walk their walk is basically what it is. So look, you know, look up their votes, look at their actions they take. On our digital politics hub, there's a resources section, and there's different links that can help you look up that information. There's a lot of reputable resources out there that exist for this. And then again, in the long term, they'll be automated and built into digital democracy. But for now, we have different resources. So that's what I would do. So cool. Yeah. So just so that's it for today's live. You know, you could check us out. We're here every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Again, I apologize, today's tech issues. Normally we start on time. And check out our hub. It's been evolving more and more. Again, it's hub.futureis.org. Right now there's plenty of stuff you could do. You could take micro actions, that small actions that make a big difference. You could recommend different trusted voices that you like, different journalists, candidates, podcasts that you like, that you think should be plugged into our network. There's a lot of different things that could really make a difference. Join our Discord as well. That's our official online community. Both are getting revamped as we speak. By the end of this month, there'll be major changes to both. The hub is getting kind of restructured and a little bit more. The UX is getting a big upgrade, and then our Discord is getting a major revamp as we speak. So by the end of the month, everything will be a lot more powerful, and then we're gonna pretty much open the floodgates by early next month, with getting just floods of people joining us and joining our community. So I recommend being one of the earlier people to join in, help shape this system, shape our hub, shape our communities. This is truly a system where we want you guys to have the voice, you guys have the control of the future of how this grows, and not just have a typical top-down system. So join us, support us, follow us on socials, join the hub, join Discord, and then yeah, and we'll see you next week. Thank you guys.